Something happens a half second before the tears actually fall. That sharp, catching breath in. The one that sounds like your chest just tripped over itself. You didn't plan it. You couldn't stop it if you tried. It arrives on its own, right at the edge of overwhelm, like your body pressing a button you never knew existed. Most people think crying starts with the eyes, but it doesn't. It starts with that gasp. And that gasp is doing something strangely specific, a job that has almost nothing to do with sadness itself. Your body is running an ancient program in that moment, one that quietly reveals how deeply your breathing and your emotions are wired together. So what exactly is that gasp for? Stay with me, because the answer rearranges how you think about crying entirely. Let's slow the moment down. Emotion builds, your throat tightens, and then that involuntary inhale, a quick, stuttering pull of air. Scientists call the muscle behind it your diaphragm, the big dome-shaped sheet under your lungs that powers every breath you take. Normally it works in smooth, quiet waves, but under strong emotion, something interrupts that rhythm. Your nervous system briefly seizes control, and the diaphragm contracts in a fast, sharp spasm instead of a gentle pull. That's the gasp. It isn't clumsiness. It's a deliberate override. Your body abruptly changing how you breathe because it senses a shift in your internal state. Which raises the real question. Why would rising emotion reach in and hijack the very muscle that keeps you alive? The answer sits deep in your brain's control room. Here's the first piece of the puzzle. Your breathing is run by two systems that usually take turns. One is automatic. It keeps you breathing while you sleep, while you read, while you forget you're breathing at all. The other is emotional, and it lives closer to the ancient core of your brain, the part that handles fear, bonding, and stress. When feeling surges, that emotional layer can grab the controls. It doesn't ask permission. It simply shoves the automatic rhythm aside and stamps its own pattern onto your breath. The gasp is the moment those two systems collide, the smooth automatic tide broken by an emotional wave crashing over it. And that collision, it turns out, may serve a genuine purpose. Your body isn't glitching, it's resetting. Think about what a big inhale actually does. It floods your lungs with a rush of fresh air, more than a normal breath ever would. That surge is linked to your body's stress and recovery balance, the seesaw between your accelerator nerves and your brake nerves. A sudden, deep breath can nudge that seesaw, and researchers have found that slow, full breaths are linked to a calmer, more settled nervous state. So when emotion peaks and your body fires off that gasp, one likely role is preparation, loading up on oxygen and bracing the system for what's coming. It's the difference between bracing before a jump and being caught flat-footed. Your body, in half a second, is getting ready to ride the wave rather than be knocked flat by it. But there's a second layer, and it's even more surprising. Notice how crying doesn't stay a single gasp. It becomes rhythmic. Inhale, catch, shudder, release. Those broken, jerky breaths that come with sobbing aren't random either. They're your diaphragm firing in repeated bursts, each one a smaller echo of that first big gasp. And here's the fascinating part. This ragged breathing pattern may be one of the ways crying actually helps you feel better afterward. Not because you let it out in some vague sense, but because those deep, staggered breaths can gradually shift your body toward its calming brake system. It's why people so often describe feeling drained, but oddly lighter once the tears stop. The breathing itself is doing quiet work, a self-soothing rhythm your body reaches for without a single conscious instruction from you. Now let's follow a thread you might not expect: the throat. During that pre-cry moment, you often feel a lump, a tightness, a struggle to speak. That sensation is real, and it's connected to the gasp. When strong emotion arrives, your body reflexively opens the airway wider, keeping the glottis, the gateway at the top of your windpipe, held open even when you'd normally close it to swallow or speak. The result is that thick, choked feeling, like your throat is fighting itself. It's your breathing muscles and your voice box briefly negotiating priorities, and breathing wins. Speaking becomes hard precisely because your body has decided in that instant that moving air matters more than forming words. It's an elegant, if inconvenient, ranking of what keeps you going. So why is all of this tangled up with emotion in the first place? To understand that, we look at where these signals originate. Deep in your brain sits a cluster of regions that read your emotional temperature and translate it into bodily action. Faster heartbeat, flush skin, a tightening chest. These same regions have direct lines running down to your breathing centers. When a memory, a loss, a wave of relief, or even overwhelming joy lights them up, that signal travels straight to the muscles of breath. There's no detour through your conscious mind. That's why you can't reason your way out of the gasp, any more than you can decide not to blink when something flies at your face. Emotion and breath share the same ancient wiring, and that wiring is old. How old? Consider that crying with tears appears to be uniquely, deeply human. But the breathing disruptions of distress are everywhere in the animal world. A frightened animal gasps, freezes, alters its breath. That link between feeling and breathing runs back through countless generations, long before we ever wept from grief or joy at a wedding. What may have started as a raw survival response, a fast breath to prepare for danger, appears to have been borrowed and refined over time into something richly emotional. The gasp before you cry could be an ancient alarm reflex that evolution repurposed for the tender, social business of feeling deeply. Your body kept the old machinery and gave it a new job. That reuse is one of biology's favorite tricks. Here's an original observation worth sitting with. We tend to describe crying as something that happens to us, an emotion so big it spills over. But the sequence tells a different story. The gasp comes first. The breath moves before the tears do, which means your body may be responding to the emotion a beat before your conscious mind fully catches up. In a very real sense, part of you knows you're about to cry before you know it. That tiny lead time, the gap between the gasp and the awareness, is a small window into how much of your inner life runs beneath the surface, on circuits you never chose and rarely notice. Your body is often the first to react, and your feelings, in a way, catch up to it. This also helps explain a common experience: trying to hold back tears. When you fight it, what are you actually fighting? You're clamping down on that breath. You hold your air still. You breathe shallow and controlled. You swallow hard. All attempts to stop the diaphragm from firing that gasp. Sometimes it works for a while, but the effort is exhausting precisely because you're overriding an automatic system with sheer willpower, and willpower tires fast. This is also why a slow, deliberate breath can help someone steady themselves in an emotional moment. It's giving that emotional breathing override a calmer pattern to lean into. It's a gentle way of working with the wiring instead of against it, and it may help people feel more grounded when feelings run high. There's a reason crying so often brings people closer, too, and the gasp plays a quiet part. That audible catch of breath is a signal, one others recognize instantly, across every culture without a word spoken. A person who hears that gasp knows, immediately, that someone is moved. It's a broadcast of vulnerability that we're wired both to make and to respond to. This may be part of why crying is so deeply social. The breath itself communicates. Long before language, that shuddering inhale could tell the members of a group that one of them needed comfort. The gasp, in other words, isn't only a private reset. It may also be a small, ancient call for connection, a sound that pulls other humans toward you. Let's close the loop we opened at the start. That sharp gasp before the tears. It's the meeting point of everything we've traced. Your emotional brain seizing your breathing muscle, an ancient survival reflex repurposed for feeling, a self-soothing rhythm switching on, a throat rearranging its priorities, and a signal reaching out to others all at once. It only sounds like a stumble. In truth, it's a beautifully coordinated event, executed faster than thought, tuned by millions of years, running entirely on its own. The next time you feel that catch in your chest, you'll know it isn't weakness spilling over. It's your body, wise and automatic, quietly getting you ready and reaching out in the same silent breath. And this reframes something we rarely question. We treat crying as a loss of control, an unraveling. But underneath the mess is astonishing order, layered systems firing in sequence to help you cope, recover, and connect. Your body isn't falling apart in those moments. It's doing precisely what it evolved to do, with a precision your conscious mind could never match. The gasp is proof that even in your rawest, least composed instant, something inside you is working with quiet intelligence on your behalf. There's a strange comfort in that. The parts of us that feel most out of control may actually be the parts that know exactly what they're doing, running ancient programs that have carried our ancestors through grief and joy for a very long time. If this changed how you'll hear that catch of breath forever, imagine what your body is hiding in the next 100 everyday moments. The sigh, the flinch, the shiver you never think twice about. That's exactly what we decode here, one hidden mechanism at a time. Subscribe and follow along, because your body is running quiet miracles every single second. And once you start noticing them, you genuinely can't stop. This is general information for the curious, not medical advice. Just a window into the astonishing machine you live inside. Hit subscribe, and let's uncover the next secret your body's been keeping from you all along. There's so much more happening under the surface than you'd ever guess, and I can't wait to show you.